it's Cassandra. Welcome to the Buy Tennessee Dirt training videos. If you're new to the team, welcome. And if you've been with us for a while, welcome back. So today we're going to go over the notification form. Now this is can be used for either the seller to notify the buyers or the buyer to notify the sellers. So in this particular one, we were notifying as the buyers, we were notifying the sellers of the home that they were going to be purchasing. And here's the information that should be automatically filled out if it's filled out correctly on your DocuSign. And then, of course, we put in the binding date of 5/24 because that's when we went under contract. So in this particular one, and I will go over the rest of them, but in this particular one, we were informing the sellers that the home sale contingency failed to sell prior to closing. So this particular one, our buyers needed to sell their home in Colorado in order to buy this home here in Tullahoma. Unfortunately, we were approaching the date of that contingency, allowing us to get their house under contract. And so we unfortunately had to back out of the contract of buying here because our date had expired or was going to be expiring. So let's just go over this form real quick as far as what else the notification form offers. So this first part of this section is going to be notifying from the buyers to the seller. One is made that the buyer has made application for loan and is notifying seller or seller's representative of the name of the contact information for the lender, which they should have this information if you're sending over a pre-approval letter. But you can always fill that out and let them know. 2 is that the buyer has waived buyer's financial contingencies and is furnishing proof of available funds in the following manner. So, if they're saying, hey, we decided not to do a loan, we magically came into some money. Here's our proof of funds, and this is what we're doing. I very rarely would not use this because you never want to waive a buyer's financial contingency, whether they're paying cash or doing a loan. So, but it's there if you need to use it. And then this one here as well is waive the buyer's financial contingency is providing seller with the name and telephone number of the appraiser who shall conduct the appraisal of the property. Number 4 is the appraised value did not equal or exceed the purchase, and the buyer shall notify the seller decision to terminate the agreement. So in this case, let's say the appraisal comes in $40,000 less than what they're under contract for, and the seller is not willing to budge and is not willing, and they want exactly what the offer was for, then you would select, and you can select multiples of these, by the way, if need be, but you would select number 4 saying, okay, well, the appraised value is not what we agreed upon, and I'm not willing to pay $40,000 more than what the appraised value is. Number 5 is that the appraised value did not equal or exceeded the purchase price, and then buyer waiving the appraisal contingency, meaning that they're accepting it as is. They're willing to pay, whatever the appraisal amount is there. Number 6, appraised value did not equal or exceed purchase price. Buyer is exercising the right to terminate and hereby request refund of all earnest money. So that's, obviously pretty self-explanatory that it didn't appraise. We want our money back. Number 7, having acted in good faith, buyer is unable to obtain financing and is exercising the right to terminate and hereby request the refund of earnest money or trust money. So that one, obviously, you would select it if something fell through with their ability to obtain financing. Number 8, buyer has changed lenders and is notifying the seller. So you would just put in the new lender's information there. Number 9, buyer warrants or represents the following. Buyer has secured evidence of hazard insurance, and then you'll provide the company name. This one here is buyer has notified lender in intent to proceed and has available funds to close per the signed loan estimate. And all these items too, you can you don't necessarily have to every single time something happens. The notification form isn't necessarily doesn't necessarily need to be used every single time something like that happens, unless you have been requested for that notification. You should be fine as long as you're communicating everything with the other agent as well. Buyer has requested that the appraisal be ordered and affirms that the appraisal fee has been paid. Option 10, title examination, closing loan or survey pursuant boundary lines. So this is like if you're getting, I believe if you're getting a little bit more in depth with your title search, and if there's any kind of surveys or anything like that, or if there's any following material defects, you're going to put that there. Number 11, material defects disclosed in title examination, closing and loan survey, boundary line survey, other information have not been remediated prior to the closing or any extension thereof resulting in terminating of these. So basically if there's anything up here that came up and title examination, title search came up and it was like, well, it, even though it says Jim Bob owns it, technically, according to their title search, Jane Smith owns it. And we're putting that in there saying, hey, you actually don't own this property. Somebody else owns it. And you're not willing to fix it or anything like that. Or there was a defect that we noticed that. This is where you would select option 11. Option 12 is the buyer has made any and all inspections available under the inspection section of the purchase and sale agreement and is exercising the right to immediately terminate the purchase and sale agreement and requesting the money. So if you get back the report, the home inspection report, and the home inspector's there, it's on a rainy day, and he's looking through the attic space, and all of a sudden there's a gigantic hole that he just notices, and it's just, you've got rain coming in or whatever the case may be, something very large and something that's not easy to fix, or if a seller is not willing to fix any repairs at all after you've done the home inspection and they're just not willing to do anything, this is where you'll select, hey, I've done my inspections and this house is flat out is not going to work for me because there's too many issues with it. I don't have the funds to make these repairs. The seller isn't willing to make the repairs. And then down here, you would list the obligation, or list the reasons why you are, or the buyer is willing or wanting to get out of this. You would also use this one to, if they get through the home inspections and everything, and they just, like I said, they just flat out didn't have the didn't like how the report came out, that's the one that you would choose. Okay, option 13 is the buyer has made any and all inspections available under the inspection section of the purchase sale agreement and is accepting the property as is in its present condition. 14 is buyer waives any and all inspections. 15 is pursuant of first right of refusal addendum. Buyer has listed their home with the licensed real estate broker, and the home is advertised in a multi-listing service. So this would come into play if your buyer is listing their house to sell their house. You would put that in here as well. Okay, buyer withdraws the offer. That one there, I don't like to use, only because if your buyer just flat out withdraws the offer for whatever reason and doesn't give an explanation, they are most likely are not going to get their earnest money back. So then there's also 17, buyer right to terminate the agreement because the seller failure to complete agreed upon repairs. So you've made that, kind of goes hand in hand sort of with 12, but this one just flat out says, hey, we've made the request and they just flat out will not, flat out said, oh yeah, we'll go ahead and do it. And they did not do it at the, uh, in the deadline or at the, by the final inspection. So you'd select that. And then there's 18. So in this, like I said earlier, this gives you an other as to reason why. And like I said, you can select multiples. But we obviously selected other of the home sale contingency failed to sell prior to closing. And then the other half of the form is notifying the seller to the buyer. So option 19 is the seller's written demand for buyer to provide a name and contact information of the lender. So if we're just kind of this form is to kind of give everyone a little bit of a nudge and be like, hey, we're letting you know we were asking for the information about the lender. We need to get that information. So the seller's just saying, hey, we would like this information sent over to us. 20, the seller has written demand for buyer to provide the name and contact information of the lender, or else they're going to be terminating the agreement. Because the buyer has failed to give that information. 21, the seller's written demand for the buyer to provide supporting documentation regarding loan denial. If buyer comes up here and says, hey, I want to withdraw my offer, well, the sellers can go back and be like, well, I need to know why. And I need to know, if you've got denied a loan, I need to know if that's the case. 22, the seller's written request for buyer to provide proof of available funds as required for the transaction, if the buyer has waived their financial contingencies. Like I said, it goes back. I would never waive the buyer's financial contingencies. But in this case, if they're asking for it, there you go. 23, seller has made written demand for buyer to provide proof of funds required for transaction, but the buyer has failed to do so in the 2 days and hereby are thereby terminating the agreement. So sellers have asked and asked and asked, and they still have not provided with that information, so they will terminate the agreement. The seller has written demand for the name and telephone number of the appraisal to proof the appraisal was ordered in the transaction. 25, seller has made written demand for the name and telephone number of the appraisal, and however, the buyer has failed, therefore terminating the agreement. Seller has written request that the buyer provide supporting documentation to show appraised value did not equal or exceed the agreed upon purchase price. So as soon as your appraisal comes in from the lending office, go ahead and share it. Ask your buyers, hey, can I share the appraisal just like the home inspection report? Ask that you can share the report and send it over to the listing agent. 27, seller's written demand to provide the following warranties. If the buyer needs to, get hazard insurance, or the buyer's notified lender to intent to proceed in the letter. So basically all the closings, docs and stuff like that, we're going to, basically get it clear to close. 28, demand for warrant represent the buyer's secured evidence of hazard insurance. 29, holder has advised that the earnest money, holder has advised that the earnest money, trust money, check, or other instrument has been dishonored or not timely received by holder. So basically this one is if, hey, we requested the earnest money and we're past that 3 days, the seller's not going to be happy. So they're going to select this one and be like, we need immediately to have those funds be available into escrow. And then this also goes about the earnest money as well. If the holder has requested the earnest money from the buyers and the buyer still has failed to give that money, has turned in their earnest money, that the seller is going to be exercising the right to terminate. Okay, so this one is if the title or holder of the earnest money has not been timely received, hasn't been received from the buyer, which I don't know, this is kind of like the second, it's kind of sort of the same thing, but basically if it hasn't been turned in the timely manner, that the seller gives the right to terminate the agreement. This goes over the first right of refusal addendum, and say, hey, the sellers agreed on this purchase sale agreement as long as the buyer was going to um, provide that they're selling their home, has listed their home, and they've yet to do that. That's going to be those two sections there, 32 and 33. If they haven't listed their home in the timely manner, they have the right to terminate the contract. And then this one down here is for new constructions. Seller hereby notifies buyer that the improvements are substantially completed. Buyer shall cause to be conducted an inspection provided in the new construction purchase and sale agreement. Um, and then this one here is for new construction only. If the seller has to, delay the construction or delay the closing, they're going to give the reason here. And then this one is for backup agreement contingencies only. Seller hereby notifies buyer that the primary agreement has been terminated or null and void. Buyer's backup agreement has been moved to the primary position. So this means that the seller has a purchase and sale agreement offer that's already been, under contract, and then it fell out. So now they're going to go to their backup offer, and that's what this one is saying, that that the first offer is no longer valid, and that they're going to move on to the backup offer. And then, of course, the last one here, seller withdraws the offer or any counter offers. And then, of course, there's other. So as always, make sure that all of the information is in there correctly. And so you would use this form if you need to cancel the contract or any of the other items that I listed. Just be very careful as to what you put in and make sure that you are not falsifying the document. And it is an actual reason as to why they are notifying or canceling the contract. As always, definitely give us a call if you have any questions.